Welcome to a journey into the shadows. Humanity's obsession with the afterlife and things that go bump in the night isn't just a modern trend, it's woven into the very fabric of our history. Thousands of years ago, in the cradle of civilization, the Mesopotamians recorded some of the first ghost stories on clay tablets. They believed that if a person wasn't buried correctly, their spirit would return to haunt the living as a gidim. These weren't just stories, they were warnings. Tonight, we are going to trace the timeline of terror, moving from those ancient stone ruins through the fog of the Victorian era, all the way to the digital hauntings of today. Get ready to explore the evolution of horror. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates as we dive deep into the darkness.
As we move into the Middle Ages, the nature of hauntings took on a more religious and moralistic tone. The concept of purgatory became a central theme in Europe. Ghosts weren't just angry spirits, they were often seen as souls returning from the afterlife to ask for prayers or to warn family members of their impending sins. During this time, the danse macabre, or the dance of death, became a popular artistic motif, reminding everyone that no matter their status in life, death was the ultimate equalizer. Imagine walking through a medieval village at night, the only light coming from a flickering torch, and hearing the wind whistle through the rafters of a cathedral. It was an era where the line between the physical world and the spiritual realm was incredibly thin, and every shadow held a potential omen of the divine or the demonic.
Fast forward to the mid-19th century, and the world of the supernatural underwent a massive transformation. This was the birth of modern spiritualism. It all started in 1848 in Hydesville, New York, with the Fox sisters. They claimed to communicate with a spirit in their home through a series of mysterious rappings on the walls. This sparked a global craze. Suddenly, seances were the height of social fashion. People gathered in darkened parlors, holding hands around mahogany tables, waiting for a sign from the other side. This era introduced us to the archetype of the haunted house as we know it today: creaky floorboards, cold spots, and heavy velvet curtains. The Victorians were obsessed with death, often keeping mourning jewelry and taking post-mortem photographs, which only fueled the fire of these ghostly narratives. While spiritualism was taking over the parlors, literature was capturing the darker side of the human psyche. The Victorian and Edwardian eras gave us some of the most enduring ghost stories ever written. Authors like M.R. James and Sheridan Le Fanu moved away from the bloody horror and focused on atmospheric dread. Think of a lonely scholar finding an ancient whistle in a ruin, only to realize something has followed him home. Or the psychological weight of a family curse in a crumbling mansion. This period established the idea that hauntings weren't just external events, but often reflections of our own inner guilt and secrets. The Gothic style became the visual language of horror: high arches, overgrown graveyards, and the constant feeling that you are being watched by something unseen. The 20th century brought a new medium for our fears: the silver screen. Early cinema harnessed the power of light and shadow to create hauntings that could be shared by thousands at once. Masterpieces like Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari used expressionist sets to simulate madness and the supernatural. By the 1930s, Universal Monsters took the world by storm. But it was the subtle ghost stories like The Haunting of 1963 that truly chilled audiences. Instead of showing a monster, directors used sound and camera movement to suggest a malevolent presence. This shift proved that what we don't see is often far scarier than what we do see. Cinema allowed us to experience the thrill of a haunting from the safety of a theater seat, turning our collective nightmares into a form of mass entertainment.
As we moved into the mid-century, hauntings shifted from ancient castles to our own backyards. This was the era of the urban legend. Stories like The Hook or The Vanishing Hitchhiker were told around campfires and at sleepovers across the country. These stories felt real because they happened to a friend in locations that were familiar: lonely highways, lovers' lanes, or babysitters' houses. This era tapped into the anxieties of a changing world, where the dangers weren't just supernatural, but could be hiding in the seat of your car. The horror became personal and immediate. It wasn't about a ghost from 300 years ago anymore. It was about the spirit of a hitchhiker who disappeared just last night on the very road you are driving on right now.
The late 1970s and 80s introduced a new level of intensity, the poltergeist and the extreme haunting. Based on supposedly true events, cases like the Enfield haunting and the Amityville horror captured the public's imagination. This era was characterized by physical manifestations, furniture moving, walls bleeding, and spirits that weren't just seen but felt. This period also saw the rise of the satanic panic, where fears of the occult were everywhere. Horror movies like The Exorcist and Poltergeist blurred the lines between religious faith and terrifying reality. It wasn't just about a ghost in the attic, it was about an invisible force invading the sanctity of the family home. The suburbia that once felt safe was now the primary setting for our deepest, most visceral fears.
In the 1990s and early 2000s, the way we hunted ghosts changed forever. This was the rise of the paranormal investigator. Shows like Ghost Hunters and Most Haunted brought the search for the supernatural into a pseudo-scientific light. No longer were we relying on seances. Now we had EMF meters, thermal cameras, and EVP recorders. The found footage genre, kicked off by the Blair Witch Project, made hauntings feel raw and unedited. We were no longer just watching a story, we were participating in an investigation. The horror came from the graininess of the night vision, the frantic breathing of the cameraman, and the sudden, unexplained spikes on a digital meter. This era turned everyone with a camcorder into a potential ghost hunter, searching for proof in the darkness of abandoned hospitals and prisons.
As the world became interconnected through the internet, horror found a new home in the form of creepypastas. These were digital urban legends, born on forums like 4chan and Reddit. Characters like Slender Man or the Backrooms created a new kind of mythology. These hauntings didn't need a history. They were viral, spreading from computer to computer like a digital curse. The internet allowed for collaborative storytelling, where thousands of people contributed to the lore of a single entity. It also introduced the concept of unsettling media, disturbing videos with no context that felt like they shouldn't exist. The horror of the digital age is the feeling that there is something wrong with the reality we see through our screens, a glitch in the matrix that hides something malevolent.
Despite our modern technology, some of the most terrifying hauntings remain rooted in specific locations around the world. Places like the Aokigahara Forest in Japan or the Island of the Dolls in Mexico carry a weight of tragedy that transcends time. In these locations, the atmosphere itself seems to hold the memory of past horrors. Folklore in different cultures reminds us that hauntings are a global phenomenon. From the Yurei of Japan with their long black hair and white kimonos, to the La Llorona of Latin America weeping by the river, every culture has its own way of processing death and the spirits that refuse to leave. These stories serve as a reminder that some terrors are universal, born from the shared human experience of loss, regret, and the fear of the unknown. As we look to the future, the question remains, are ghosts real, or are they a product of our environment and psychology? Modern science offers many explanations, from infrasound causing feelings of dread to carbon monoxide hallucinations. Yet, even with all our logic, there are still thousands of documented cases that defy explanation. Perhaps hauntings are a way for our brains to process a world that is far more complex than we can perceive. Whether it's a residual energy left behind in stone walls or a true consciousness surviving after death, the power of these stories remains. We continue to seek out the scary because it makes us feel alive. It reminds us that there are still mysteries in this world that cannot be solved by a search engine or a laboratory.
Thank you for joining us on this chronological journey through the history of hauntings and horrors. From the clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the digital corridors of the internet, our fascination with the supernatural shows no signs of fading. As long as there are shadows, there will be stories of what lives within them. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the evolution of fear. If you have a personal ghost story or a favorite era of horror, let us know in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Before you head back into the light,
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates and chilling explorations into the unknown. Stay curious and stay safe in the dark.